from the University of California, Berkeley, not Barkley. I've heard, oh, you're at Berkeley. Actually, not at Berkeley, at Berkeley. I'm going to talk about actually the absolute opposite end of what my colleagues have been sharing such lovely things here, and talk about massive online courses. As an administrator, I no longer actually teach face-to-face courses, but I do get to teach MOOCs. And so while they talk of classes of 12, I'm going to talk about classes of 12,000 or even 100,000 in some cases. But the thing we share in common here is how do you keep students interested? How do you keep them coming back? How do you keep them logging in? How do you keep them engaged? How many of you in here have taken a MOOC? How many of you have failed to complete at least one MOOC? Me too. I want to start by saying, actually, I don't see that as a problem, necessarily. Lots of people take MOOCs for lots of different reasons. I don't actually believe in a dropout rate with MOOCs. I like to see it as a drop-in rate. I think the best corollary is when you join a gymnasium, right? First day, I'm going to go every day. I'm going to get so fit. I'm going to lose 10 kilos. It's going to be great. 1 week you do really well. Week 2, okay, so I only made it 4 days, but that's not so bad. By week 3, oh, the kids have a birthday party. I have to work late. Real life intrudes on anybody's ability to complete MOOCs. So I think it's up to us to kind of find ways to make it worth the extra time that people are carving out of their schedule to show up. I'm going to talk about 2 online courses that I teach. I actually do several, but these are both designed for English language learners. The first one, College Writing 2.2x, just the numbers are not that important, but is a course in academic and business writing. This course, and I'll talk more about what this means, the recent version of this course received an inclusion statement. I'll share what I mean by that. The second course, English for Journalists, parts 1 and 2, we had to split it up there, received instructions to set goals. And I want to talk about kind of what all of this means in terms of engagement and completion. First, I want to talk about engagement is such a buzzword these days, but in online engagement, often total completion rate is used as a sign of success. As I said, I don't necessarily think it's a sign of success. There are other ways to succeed in doing an online class, but it's an easy statistic. I also like to look at the number of items that are actually completed, because sometimes, like I took a MOOC once, and I wasn't actually interested in all the topics. There were like 3 topics in it that I really wanted to know about. The others, not so much. So even if students are engaging with single topics or single assessed items. You can also, of course, in the big data world, look at numbers of pages viewed, the numbers of videos that students are watching, and of course, because everything is tracked in these software programs, you even know the number of seconds on each video that is typical for a student to engage with, and then also discussion forum engagement. So just a few numbers to throw at you here. So I've looked at things from 2016 forward only, although I have been teaching these classes since 2014. There's a distinction between auditing students and paid students. Most students audit, meaning they take it for free. If you pay, you can receive a nice certificate that you can hang on your wall or add to your LinkedIn page or whatever it is you want to do with the certificate. But as you can see there, very few people actually opt to pay for the certificate. So most are taking it for free. So that's just some statistics. So we're looking at a total number here of 591 students and so the 2018 Academic and Business English is the one that got the inclusion statement. The 2018 English for Journalists received the goal-setting instructions. Okay, sorry for all the numbers here, but there is a story in the data. The V after each one means the paid version. So this is the passing rates, actually the completion rates. So in 2017, the non-paid students finished at a 10% completion rate, which is very typical for MOOCs. If they paid, they passed at a 65% rate. I don't know what happened in 2018 with that course. Not as many paid students passed, but they still passed at a higher rate than the non-paying students. Then we go back to a more typical pattern. Actually, 15.1, 17% passing is actually very high for a MOOC. 64% though if they pay. So it seems like the story might end there. You know what motivates students? Just pay. But the issue is not all students can pay. Not all students want to pay. And it's not the reason that I actually started teaching MOOCs, was to make money. We do this for kind of a larger interest in global education. So I want to take this out of the equation. It's not interesting. It's not interesting that if you pay, you're more likely to finish than if you don't pay. So if we take this out of the equation, then what's next? What else might contribute to your completing a course? So I don't know if you're going to be able to read this. Can you read this one back there? Yeah, this is just a screenshot of what the inclusion group saw. So I'm going to read it out so you know what it says. So as students signed up for the course, they were randomly sorted into groups. They didn't know which group they were in. They were either in the inclusion group or in the non-inclusion group. If they're in the inclusion group, they got this message. Are you in this picture? Are you a homeschooled teenager wondering if you can handle a course with complex readings? Perhaps you're a senior adult who hasn't been in the classroom for years and concerned that you can't keep up. Maybe English isn't your native language. By the way, even though these are designed for non-native speakers of English, a large number of native speakers elect to take them. And you're worried that your vocabulary isn't strong enough to handle the reading. Maybe you have a disability that keeps you away from traditional classrooms, but you are still eager to learn. We want to reassure everyone that you belong here. MOOCs are a great place to further or renew your love of learning. If you think I'm the only one like this, you're going to be delighted to find others who share a lot in common with you. Take a moment and either privately or in the discussion below, express any doubts or fears you have about completing the course. We're here to help, and more than that, you're all here to help each other. So, and then have fun, which is always my tagline. So for the inclusion students, 3,829 audit students received that message. 394 of those passed, that is completed with 50% of 50% score for the course or higher. That was a 10% passing rate compared to 10% if they didn't get the inclusion message. 3,991 audit students did not receive the additional message. 420 passed, which was a 10% passing rate. 31 paid students received it, 6 of them passed, 19% compared to 19%. In other words, this message of inclusion, which also was followed up by a couple of emails to reinforce the message, had absolutely no impact on whether they completed or engaged with the course. After that, I read some research that talked also about goal setting as another way to engage students in their own learning. So optionally in our journalism class, students were asked to write their goals for the class. What did they want to get out of the class? They were also encouraged to write in their daily planner when they were going to make time for the course material. So they were given some strategies for not only to set their goals, but how to achieve them. 195 of the audit students set their goals at the beginning of the class. 47 of those passed, 24% passing rate compared to an overall rate of 9%. 12 paid students, and we're getting down to smaller numbers, 8 passed, but even that was 75% of them passed compared to 57%. I didn't share some of their fears about the class. Some of them were very personal, and I didn't feel comfortable to really share what they had said. Most of it had to do with either age. A lot had to do with having incomplete education and not feeling educated enough to take a MOOC, and feeling lesser than other students. The goals I'm a little more comfortable with. There are probably some things that are very common and very familiar to all of you. That they wanted to learn something new, to understand the world, to expand their overall education through the courses offered at edX. I need to refresh and upgrade my business knowledge and skills. I want to develop, and it is much easier with edX. Courses are interesting and useful, universities are reliable and reputable, and the method is convenient. And I registered for edX because I would like to keep my mind fresh and stimulated. This seems like the perfect opportunity to soak in some knowledge while still maintaining my home life. So I'm actually getting to some conclusions because I have a lot to say about this. This is obviously a pilot study. We're just getting started with looking at the different variables. One of the variables, or many of the variables that we didn't look at are demographic ones. And so, we don't know whether age affects things, gender, any of these things. Background, language background, or country. And the reason for this is all of that data is self-reported. So when I started looking at the information for my class, I apparently had students as young as 6 months old and as old as 147. A large number of students use VPNs, which mask where they're coming from. Part of the reason for this could be that edX uses a backend for video delivery through YouTube, which is blocked in a lot of countries. And so some students actually, even though there are alternative ways to get the videos, some students prefer to use VPNs and get direct access. So we're really not able to reliably use demographic information to predict. We're looking at ways to do this, but as of yet, we haven't. I don't think I want to start making conclusions about 6-month-olds versus 147-year-olds and their completion rates in MOOCs. So as I mentioned, the inclusion statements really seem to have no effect on the pass rate or the engagement rate with the course. But goal setting was highly associated with the increasing pass rate. And I want to make it really clear here that there's no cause and effect presumed here. It could very well be the case that it's those students who chose to set goals who were already motivated to complete the course. We don't really know. However, that said, it seems like a really good strategy, perhaps, to include goal setting as part of the process of doing any kind of online course, of asking students not only what is it you want to get out of this experience, but how are you going to do it? What's your plan for doing it? We include some videos. There's a lovely video on how to be a MOOC student by Dave Cormier in Canada that just kind of goes through some great strategies on how to succeed at MOOCs. And we have a number of tools now that we're introducing in the MOOCs to really get students to understand that enthusiasm will usually carry them through the first week or so. After that, they really need a strategy and a plan. And so for my interpretation of why this might be so, Why didn't the inclusion statements actually work? There's research that told me that it should, that says, these kinds of statements make students feel more of a part of the community, make them feel more motivated to participate. My interpretation, and in the question-answer period, I'd be happy to hear others, is that in the end, inclusion statements are top-down. It's the instructor kind of driving the train. I'm telling people, in his essence, how they should feel. And even though it's welcoming and lovely to say these things, in fact, it's a very passive activity to just read this statement of inclusion. The goal setting, I think, those are initiated by the student, right? It's personalized. They set up their own goals, their own plans, and I think it has a more direct effect on how they might then proceed to complete the course. I send out an email also reminding them, go back and review your goals. And go back and review, is your plan working? If you set up a schedule where, as many of us do, a very unreasonable schedule, I'm going to study 3 hours a day, every day. Is that really what's happening? Or can you revise your goal and revise your plan to that goal and make it something more reasonable for your lifestyle? So some future directions, of course, we're continuing this research, going to be adding some variables, testing out with some different classes and different groups of students, of course. We also might really start looking at the particular types of goals that are stated and whether there's any way that we can kind of look at a more granular way on how those goals correlate with success in the courses. We're also going to start doing what I say, a more sophisticated statistical analysis. We're going to be combining data sets with some of the large MOOCs that are taught at the University of Adelaide in Australia. And we going there, they've got a lovely data specialist there that we're going to be making use of to sort out, because as it was mentioned in the introduction, I've actually taught about 1 million students at this point. Adelaide has a similar number, and to me it's just fascinating to see how these variables kind of sort out and things that we think might work actually don't in the end. So I think that's about it. Question time, yeah.